Hi, hi, Money Magicians. How are you? Welcome to today's podcast episode. My guest with me is Whitney Walker. She's incredible. I have been on her podcast before. She runs an incredible podcast called Women Awakening. And it was very, very awesome to be on that podcast. So obviously, I had to ask her to come on this podcast because she has such incredible knowledge on trauma, and I wanted us to unpack some of that, but also to hear the work that she does. So, without further ado, welcome, Whitney.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, please, can you just start off by telling us who you are? How do you define yourself as a soul?
Whoa, that's a big question. Well, as a soul, I would define myself as a divine being that's having a experience on Earth that has come here to learn about love and communication and relationships, and that is here to help the world to rebalance and to develop a greater understanding of what I would call the divine feminine, but essentially our reconnection with source, which is the totality of everything, the infinite source of love that we have access to, but we have denied ourselves for eons on this planet. So as a soul, I am a beacon of hope and light that's working to be a communicator. I think my purpose here is communicating. I'm not the best at developing things or creating things, but I can talk.
I love that. I love how you said that you are a beacon of hope and light. Wow. So, Whitney, I'm really, really curious about the work that you do because it's really powerful how you work with divine feminine energy and also combine it with your work as just a therapist. Please, can you just tell us what it is that you do? I'm sure it's going to fascinate and help a lot of people.
Well, thank you. So I'm a mental health therapist and I specialize in addiction, substance abuse, eating disorders, and trauma. And I combine it with my focus in spirituality and with the divine feminine, because my belief is that we've developed these things on this planet, like addiction, like eating disorders, these various means to seek something outside of ourselves, to soothe or establish something within, rather than realizing that we have it within us always, all the time, inherently. So the divine feminine is that knowing that we are whole and complete and lacking nothing, to quote a lovely guest I recently had, Natalie Warren, on my show. Wow. We are everything we need, yet we spend most of our lives seeking outside of ourselves. And that's, why I love what you're doing, Vangile, because money is just another avenue that people will often abuse and form an unhealthy relationship with in order to try and validate themselves, to try and prove their worth and their value. And it's a defeating cycle to be in that place. In its own accord, money is a beautiful thing. It affords us to have and do the things that we want. I'm not a huge fan of the way that we conduct it here on this planet. However, ultimately, it's just a source of energy that we've used as an exchange, right? I've gained this much energy because I've done this work to attain it. And therefore I can get these things because I have this to share. Really, it's just all about sharing energies is money. But we've made it into a very greed, sort of just profit focused mindset, a lack mentality around money, which is I have to save my money. I have to hold on tight to my money because it might go away. And I need money in order to be prestigious, to be seen a certain way. Those are all very dangerous ideas, very akin to what I focus on my work with, let's say an eating disorder, where you think I know what I can do. I feel like I have no sense of control in life, but if I can starve myself and be as thin as possible, people will look at me different. People will see that I am, impressive or whatever their distorted view is, right? Because obviously that's not true, but people sometimes believe if you change the way you look on the outside, then you'll get what you want from others, from the world. But we're left feeling empty inside. You can have all the money in the world, doesn't mean you're going to be happy. You can look perfect and be, the exact right size to you and still be miserable.
Yes. Wow.
In my work, that's what I do, is to help people to bring their power back, because we diffuse our power, our energy to everywhere else and everyone else. When you bring it back in and realize that you're lacking nothing, you stop abusing those things. You stop abusing food and money and attention and sex and love, because you realize you never needed those things in the first place to change or to have value. You have those. Those are all wonderful things to play with and use in life, right? Sex is awesome. Food is fantastic. But when we develop these unhealthy relations, then it leaves us in, it can leave us dependent on them and in an addictive, unhealthy cycle.
Yes, definitely. So well said. I'm very interested. What in your journey brought you to this work? How did you get this wisdom and this realization? Because I think most of us keep chasing that external factor, and we don't realize that it's that the number on the scale, if you're chasing the ideal body weight, is not going to make you happy, that the number in your bank account isn't the thing that's going to make you happy. And I always say it's never about the money, but I think it's never also about the number on the scale, right? It's about so much more. Yes. So how did you come to this realization?
Yeah, well, I came to it because I went through it myself. I went through all of it. I, struggled with my concept of self from the time I was young, when I was very neglected by my father, who would never acknowledge my existence, who would never spend time with me, never took care of me, and has never really had any real interest in me my whole life. And so that, when we are born, a child into this world is trusting that they will be taken care of, because a child can't take care of itself. So when you're neglected and not cared for, you're not touched, you're not held, and even I got that from my mom, but she was also very distracted because she was struggling with an eating disorder herself. So I was born into an eating disorder from the womb and neglect. So both of those things really made me challenge that if I was safe, if I was wanted, if there was something wrong with me. That's the other challenge with when you're neglected at a young age, you develop this very strong sense that there must be something wrong with me. Why wouldn't my father want to offer me love? Why wouldn't he want to care for me? I see my friends, their dads care about them. What's wrong with me? And then I got into grade school and elementary and middle school, and I was bullied by my peers. So then it was like twofold, where I was like, why are they mean to me? What's wrong with me? Why aren't they saying that to other people? Why are they targeting me? So it was really double fold. And my self-esteem was like 6 feet under. I wanted to die. I was suicidal. I was self-harming through, I developed an eating disorder by the time I was 14. And around the same time I started abusing alcohol. As soon as I discovered it, I realized, well, this makes me feel better. I don't feel so terrible when I drink. I feel like I can escape. I quickly realized that I loved any substance that made me feel like I could just check out, because I didn't want to be me. And what I realized, what I went through all those years, was a fundamental rejection of myself. And ultimately I was trying to destroy myself. It was self-destruction. So those two things, self-rejection and self-destruction, became a real focal point for me when I later on got sober. I chose to get sober when I was 28, because I realized that I couldn't be the person I wanted to be while I was still engaged in these behaviors. And I realized that there was so much underlying these addictions, right? This thought that, if I get my weight down low enough, then I'll be good enough, that I can use a substance to escape and there's no effects. Well, there is repercussions to that. So I realized that, and then I got on the path of becoming a therapist, because I was starting to heal, and I went to therapy, and I realized I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm not the only one going through this. In fact, I'm in good company, because it's the majority of people on this planet that tend to find reasons to reject themselves and then begin the self-destruction process, right?
Yes.
And that can be anything from drugs, but also through money, you know, like people can,
Yeah.
like they can say that they want wealth so badly, but then they get a little bit of wealth and they squander it and they get rid of it, because just like anything else, you don't know how to hold something that you only think you want, right? It's the same thing as someone who's desperate to get weight, and often they'll get to that weight and then just, you know, gain it all back in a week. If you don't actually believe in something, you can't hold it. If you don't believe that you deserve money, you can't have a healthy situation with it. You're almost going to be uncomfortable with it. And so you will lose it. And then because you get more comfortable with the cycle of deprivation, and then, you know, feasting and famishing, right? You deprive yourself of money, and then because then you get used to just trying to gain money, but you can't actually be comfortable having it, because you can't be comfortable with happiness because you're unhappy with yourself.
I think that's such a powerful relationship. We're going to come back to this relationship between food and money, but you and I have spoken before. It's not in this interview or on the interview that you did with me, but I want us to unpack it here, where you said to me once that you've had unhealthy relationships with so many different substances, but the only substance that you've always had a healthy relationship with is money. And I found that so fascinating, that you've never had this feast and famine relationship with money. You've just always just had a healthy relationship with money. Why do you think that is?
You know, I did a money workshop recently, and the woman that was running it gave us a wheel of emotions. And she said, I want you to describe your earliest memories of money and then look at where they land. And I realized that my earliest memories were all positive, right? It wasn't that I was in a lack mentality, so I used money. I had happy associations with money, joy and opportunity. And so I think, and also I, you know, always had the things that I needed, right? So I never, my family was, you know, sort of middle class. And so we had a home and means. And my mom was a little bit in a scarcity mindset. She would often express that, like, we needed to worry about money, worry about it. But, you know, sometimes it's so interesting what sticks and what doesn't, because for some reason I didn't internalize that. I never felt that sense. I just felt this money just felt like something that was there. And I always had just enough of it. And you know what? I think a lot of it is because I never desired a lot of money. I just wanted just as much as I needed, where I could not get enough attention. That was my big thing. I wish I could be the most stunningly beautiful person that ever existed. I don't know why, but that was my obsession. Money, I was like, cool, I have enough to go to lunch today and have a place to sleep. I'm good. There's a reason why each of us have a different thing that hits us, right? It's like, pick your poison. And for some reason, I felt at ease with money. It felt like it was always there, you know? So, but that's the only thing that I felt that way about. But my problem with money, though, is that I do have a block in terms of being able to have abundance. I don't know what it is, but there's a ceiling I have that I've never made more than just as much as I need at any given time. Yes, like when let's say I've moved into a bit of a more expensive apartment, more money will come in, a few more clients, you know, the universe takes care of me, but I've never been able to really, you know, get the money that I would need to actually have my own home, or, you know, really invest in my business, because I don't have that money. But I'm getting ready to be there. So that's why I'm taking more money courses, because I'm trying to figure out, why do I have that ceiling? Why do I believe that I can't have wealth and abundance, you know? And I think some of it is also that we do associate wealth with greed, or, you know, nefarious undertakings. And, you know, there's a negative connotation for wealth a lot of the times.
That's very, very fascinating. And I love that you talked about that sometimes we just have enough and we don't know, but there's never this abundance and we can't seem to break through a certain set point. And I've often said that, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong with this, but I've often said that what I've found is that when you know you have money trauma. You understand that, okay, something's up here, and you instantly see your set points. But what I've seen sometimes is when people have just enough, they don't realize that they have that set point, and that they just make just enough, and they always come back to a certain amount in their bank accounts, that when,
Yes.
like, it doesn't matter what the expenses are, like the universe will literally give them enough so that they cover those expenses, and they always have a certain amount of money in their savings account. I wonder if you've been able to see, to link that, and maybe it's different for you, but have you found that there's a certain amount of money that you come back to in your savings account or your investment accounts?
Yeah, well, so I keep like a base amount, and I've been a nomad the past few years. So I've kind of been in like travel exploration mode. So my savings I haven't had to touch it, but so it stayed the same, but I haven't gained any wealth, right? So it stayed there like my safety net. But I've been spending as much as I earn for the past few years, and I'm okay with that. You know, I'm more about
Yes.
experience right now. But as I said, I'm looking more towards, well, I'd really like to have my own home where I can have a studio to record and put a gym in the garage or something. And I can't do any of that. So I'm starting to, you know, that's why money is beautiful, is because, ooh, you get ideas, you get creative ideas. Well, you need the means for that. Money is energy. You get the energy to create that. So I'm starting to think that way, but yeah, but I haven't really found, because I know what you're talking about. Some people, they will, you know, have like this set point, and maybe they just happen to get a big year and they gain like 50,000 more than that, but then they might
Yes.
spend 50,000 more that year. So it's like, they'll always kind of bring it back.
Yes, definitely. So very, very fascinating about that. I find money obviously to be a very fascinating topic, but I also think that as we're having this conversation, what you said was really powerful, that for you, attention was more important than figuring out within the money stuff. Because I think, just like you said, everyone picks their poison, right? I wanted to know, how did you deal with that sense of rejection and attention and needing attention? What are some healing methodologies that you went through? What was your healing journey like? And do you still feel that you still need to, that you need that attention? You
Yeah.
know, and what do you do when you feel like that? That's a lot of questions in one. I apologize.
No, don't apologize. I hear you. And I thank you for asking that. And I'm happy to share. So for me, Vangile, a big turning point was, I was 24 and I had, you know, I'd really changed my look and I'd moved to a new town. I did what they call in recovery, they call it a geographic, where you move cities and you're like, I'm going to go to a new place and everything will resolve. I won't, you know, drink too much anymore. I won't make bad decisions. I'll start all over, meet new people. And so I moved to
Yeah.
Seattle when I was 24, just packed up my car and went. I didn't know anybody there except for my dad had a friend who lived there with his wife. But those are the only two people I knew. And, you know, I went blonde and I had lost some weight and I looked nice and I got a little bit of attention, but it still wasn't enough. And like more people, like some guys wanted to date me, which, you know, not many guys have wanted to date me throughout my life. And I felt, you know, like just not good enough, but it didn't matter. I realized I was still just as miserable and I was still unhappy because nothing was ever enough, right? Okay, well, that one person likes me, but that guy doesn't like me. So that's the problem with anything, all these addictions, they're an infinite, you know, abyss. There's no end to it. It's not like, oh, okay,
Yes.
well, I found like the right amount of alcohol where I'm good to go. When you have an alcohol problem, there's never enough. When you want money, there's never enough. It's not like you reach a certain wealth and you're at peace, because that's not what this is
Yes.
about, right? It's kind of like I was saying,
Yes,
for some
definitely.
reason, money and I we're good, right? We're good. We have a good, like when it's around, we're vibing. But for me, with like attention, it's like, yeah, but what's next? What's next? Again, with me and money, it's like, cool, glad you're here. Glad I have this money, no problem. But I think some people see money that way, where they're like, okay, well, I made 10,000 this month, but like, I want 50 next month. I made 1 million, but
Yes.
where's my 10 million? So it's this conditional relationship with these things, with these substances, with these energies that create this dysfunction, because you're a bottomless bucket with these, right? For me, attention is a bottomless bucket. It's not like there's a number I could hit that would make me happy. No, I always want more. Some people, it's that way with money. It's never actually going to satiate them. So they need more, 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 more. So
Yes.
what I realized when it finally came to me at 25, where I was like, wait a minute, maybe it has nothing to do with how I look. Maybe it has nothing to do with the attention I get. Maybe I just don't like who I am. Maybe I'm
Ooh.
desperately trying to, and I don't. And that, because I remember I was like going for a run, and, you know, sometimes running brings up so much energy, and I just burst out crying. And that's what I realized. I was like, I don't like who I am. I don't like me. And I'm desperately trying to ask somebody else to help me like myself. And that's really what we're doing when we're trying to pursue, you know, maybe we get in unhealthy relationships. We want the approval, attention, validation, or we're trying to gain money. We think that, okay, if I become a millionaire, maybe I'll finally make peace with myself. Maybe I can finally accept and love myself. Right. But it doesn't happen that way. And what happened was I finally sought out help. I got a therapist, and then I found this bookstore. It's called East West Books. It's a spiritual bookstore. I've always been heart inclined, I'll say. I've always been very drawn towards, you know, being open-hearted and having human connection and believing in the power of love, but I wasn't religious, and I didn't have, you know, strong beliefs about whether there was like a higher power or not. But this bookstore had all these books that talked about having a soul, and that there was something inside of you that was infinite and all love and perfect and always at peace and in joy at all times. And I remember thinking, like, I think I have that. I just don't think that I know it. I think I'm only as good as how I look or how people react to me, but maybe there's something bigger about who I am. And that was the first time I ever realized that. And it's a long journey, right? You can have a realization, you can buy the right book, but it's a long road until you actually internalize that. And I'm still on that road. It's still a struggle for me, but I've made a lot of progress. It's so important. Whoever needs to hear this right now, to take the time to look back at your progress, because it's so easy to feel like, oh God, I still have so much to do. And I still get, you know, I still react this way to certain situations. I still get bummed when I get rejected by somebody, but look at the difference between now and a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whether it's a relationship with money or with whatever it is, you know, we're always making progress if we're beginning the journey. So that was the start for me. And then when it really escalated and gained momentum was when I got sober. I finally decided that I had to let go of drugs and alcohol, because it was like trying to climb a mountain that was like all muddy with like water running down it, where like you're trying to climb, but you just keep slipping down it. And I was trying to love myself. But when I would drink, you know, when you use substances, especially alcohol, it creates a tunnel vision. So whatever you're thinking about will be like, you just obsess over it. And for me, I went to a dark place of all the bad things that I believed about myself, that no one was ever going to love me, and that everybody teased me and everybody rejected me because there's something so wrong with me. And that's all I could see. And those were the times that I was most, you know, that I would thought most openly about ending my life, because it felt so dire. And I just realized that, you know, I need to get back to that soul, and I need to find out more about that. And I want to stop playing this game, because that's the other thing. I think that in particular, money and, you know, being addicted to attention or love are similar, because it's a game, right? You want to get back in the game. You're like, well, I know that money isn't the answer, but like, I just want to go out there and make a ton and feel better quickly. Right. Or, well, I know that someone's approval isn't the answer, but like, I wonder if that guy would ask me out and it would feel so good to like get his attention. So, you know, it can be hard to let go of those games, but ultimately it's distracting you and keeping you from the real work of figuring out that it's all within.
Oh, yes. So as you started on this journey and you realized that you were soul, was there any particular exercise that you did? And I would also, okay, I'll ask the next question after this. Is there one particular exercise that really resonated with you?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I did was I sort of drew my soul, my essence. I remember I sat down with like, I'd gotten a bunch of crafts and arts and, you know, coloring markers. And I saw my essence as this beautiful yellow light. within me. And I pictured it right here, right in my core, right in my center, my heart. And I thought, there's something in there that doesn't ever change. Not because I have more or less money, or because I'm heavier or thinner, or because someone thinks I'm pretty or they don't. There's something that's eternal and beautiful and full of love within me all the time. That's an infinite source, way more powerful than money or food or sex or drugs could ever be. So I drew it. And then I thought, well, what are those things for me? Like you started this podcast by asking, what is your soul's, you said like, what is your soul expression or something? And so I started writing down like, well, I'm very joyful. I'm very enthusiastic. I'm very kind. I'm very curious, just writing down all the things that are great about me that I didn't take a lot of time to see because I was so focused on the deficits, right? I was always thinking like that, but I said, no, you gotta, and here's the thing about inner work. You have to, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, because it can be so hard to give yourself that credit and to invest, because it's easy to do something for something outside of ourselves, right? Well, I'll give all my time and effort to this project so I can make it successful, and then I'll get accolades for it. But the inner work, the only reason you do it is for yourself. No one else is going to know you do it, right? I mean, obviously you're going to be radiant. Your life is going to change when you start to accept yourself, but it's not like you're going to get a job promotion or, your body is going to change. You do it because you're ready to change your inner experience, which is what we have to deal with 24/7, And so which to me, it's always like the most mind-blowing thing about our world is that we give so little time and effort to this inner world that creates our entire experience, and everything to the outer world that are all little minuscule things that never really hold up. They're ephemeral, right? They come and they go.
Yes. All that you've just said, and what you keep talking about is something that when you talk about like chasing the figures, for the longest while in my life, in my business, I thought like, oh, if I talk about the numbers, that's what people will want to hear. And that's what I have to go after. That's what will help my business thrive. And very, very interesting, because the more that I do the inner work, the more guidance I'm given to do less of that, but to like stand in my truth. And I have spent, I think in particular, the last few months, the podcast took a bit of a break, a few months break actually. And the real thing that I've been working on is to figure out, what is my core truth? Who am I? And you realize that actually those are not the things that matter so much. It's not the numbers, because like you said, it's a bottomless game. There'll always be someone who makes more. And if you're tying that to the healing work, to say, oh, when you heal and then you make then the proof is that you'll make all this money. It's not true. Someone can heal and they can have a radically different experience and have everything that they want, but different things, but the numbers in their bank account may not change. Or for someone else, the reason why they came to this money healing is that they want to change their family legacy, and they seeing relationships with money change in their family, and it may not happen as radically fast as another person. So really coming to that realization as well. But as I've been doing this, I've realized that what you've said about that core energy that's always there, it doesn't disappear. And I found that when I started doing Vipassana. And I'm very, very interested in how you utilize the divine feminine, and how connecting to the divine feminine has been part of your healing journey, and also part of your clients' healing journeys. Because for me, I found that it's almost that, I don't know if we'd call it the divine feminine, but whatever it is, this divinity, guidance from ancestors, guidance from source, almost like keeps me centered to me, or anchored, and just knowing that I'll be okay and I'll be supported, and it's been transformative.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's divine feminine is just one way to say it. The reason why I focus on it is because to me, it illustrates it's the yin energy, right? It's the yin, the yang is more of the masculine, right? And so the yin is that feminine love that are both present on this planet. However, the feminine energy is very absent. So you really could just use like love is the yin, and then I don't know, like creativity or something is like more of the masculine, right? The feminine to me is the foundation or the root system of life. So I call it, I focus on the divine feminine because I feel like it's something that we can identify, that I think most people would agree that, yeah, there's not much focus or value in, or our society doesn't value compassion and love as much as it does profit and impressiveness, right? There's a great quote by Marilyn Monroe that said, she said, Hollywood is a place where they'll give you 25 cents for your soul and $1 million for a kiss. And it showed, you know, we all know that tragic story, right? That she was loved by billions, but nobody really cared about who she was. She was a commodity. People just saw her as a sex symbol. And I mean, she was troubled with mental health issues, but many people have experienced that, where they think, if I could just get all the glory, I'll be happy. But then they realize that people don't like them for them, not for their soul. They like them for how they present or their idea of them. So that's the divine feminine. It's the unseen essence of your loving, true, unconditional self, which, as you just said, you could easily call it just your source self, your true essence, your, you know, some people call it like your God self, because we're all a part of the eternal, of the larger, you know, of what is. And so whatever works for you, but I like divine feminine because I think it helps for our situation on this planet, where we can say, okay, what have we got a lot of? Well, we got a lot of masculine, right? The idea of profit and production and growth and innovation and technology. Cool. We've done that. It's great. How much do we have of this feminine energy that's about loving yourself and knowing your own worth and value, tapping into your intuition, tapping into psychic powers and abilities, tapping into healing on your own, healing yourself. We're very dependent on the masculine view that you need things outside of yourself to heal, that you need medicine to heal. Not to say we don't, but there are ways to heal yourself. There are ways, so many beautiful things, but the feminine is that which is unseen. So we discard it because we're a society that's very attached to the 5 senses only, right? If you can taste it, if you can feel it, if you can smell it, then it's real. If not, it's wishy-washy woo stuff. And so, that's why I focus on the divine feminine. And to me, the practices that it helps you with is, you know, moving away from the noise. A lot of the divine feminine is also the silence. It's the unseen and the silence. If you go out into nature, which is also a wonderful environment that represents the divine feminine, you notice that things happen perfectly naturally on their own. A tree will grow and stretch, and a flower will bud and bloom without having to be rushed or forced. There's a beautiful process that happens. And another part of the divine feminine is being in flow and being trusting in that process. So some of the practices I started doing, because I'm a very impatient person, an addict is often not very patient. That's why we turn to addiction, because we want to feel better now. We want results now. I imagine you work with people who get addicted to quick fixes with money. They want that steam, right? Why do we spend billions of dollars on the Powerball? Because we just want all that money now. We think that'll solve everything.
Right.
Yeah, we all want that quick fix. But what the divine feminine is, where you trust the unfurling of life in divine time. We trust that our soul has deep knowledge and knowing about the right thing to do, our intuition about the thing for our highest good. So when you tap into that, even right now, I'm feeling it, this shift from urgency to peace, right?
Yes.
The right things will happen. You know, there's so much beauty everywhere, in me and in you and in nature and in my dog and in our friends and our partner. There's so much beauty if we stop to see it, if we stop to see just how brilliant things are. And we don't often. So I'm sure you can see how all these things I'm describing are things that we don't do a lot of in this culture, in our world. We're very, very busy. We're all very scared. We all have a lack mindset. We all have a security deficit. We don't believe that we're safe and secure. The divine feminine knows that she is safe always. Because even if something happens to our physical body, that doesn't change. This thing is never changing. So that's another activity that I offer people. And I did a solo episode on my podcast, Women Waken, about this, which is, you know, whatever it is for you. Some people see it like a glowing light, you know, at the top of their head is their soul, is their essence. But for me, it's always been in my core that I return to. I just feel this vibrancy. this
Mm,
beautiful thing that I can return to when I'm getting outside of myself, right? When I'm thinking, I can't be
yes.
happy because that person rejected me, or because I'm still not in a healthy partnership, or because I still don't have my own home, whatever it is. And then I
Mm,
remember, your soul knows nothing about that. Your soul doesn't know
mm,
what's in your bank account. Your soul doesn't know how much you weigh.
mm, mm.
Nothing. Your soul doesn't have any judgment about anything. It's just there for the experience. So when you can tap into
Amen.
that, which again goes back to the divine feminine of patience, you're just here for the experience. And I'm sure
Yes.
you know that some of the most successful people that seem very beautiful and radiant and get attention and who have a lot of money, ironically, didn't push for it. It just came to them
Yes.
because they have a healthy
Yes.
relationship with it, and they create this essence of abundance where life is going to come in if
Mm.
you open yourself to it.
Yes, yes. I think I do find that ironic because sometimes I work with people that have been working and striving. I think we live in a world where like fame has become very, very important, right? And like they strive and they're going for that. And it keeps being elusive until you have to let it go, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I think it's very, very interesting about that concept of just letting go and coming back to your truth,
Yeah.
and I find that people that can do that are often able to achieve so much because then you're doing and you're creating not because of what you think will, or what creating and doing will get for you, but because this is something that you feel led to do on a
Yeah.
very soul level. And then like something incredible starts to happen. It's almost like the universe, your soul, everything just kind of like comes together and something incredible happens. So
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, how does someone start by tapping into their divine feminine power? I mean, we talk about the divine feminine, but I think most people say, how the heck do I do that? Is it so you draw that, but is it through meditation? Is it through seeing it? What are some exercises that you found that are so powerful, especially when someone has operated so much from the masculine and from the world of the masculine, and it's all about the external validation? And I think it's hard for people to believe whenever I say, trust the process, do the inner work, and I promise you, all the other stuff, the external stuff, will start to come to you. People don't believe that. So,
Yes.
what is the one exercise that you did?
Yeah. Well, there's so many, but the one that kind of came to me when you were saying that was love, that it's all about love. So it's about, what I've heard before is that if you want to experience something, be the cause for someone else to experience it.
Mm,
Because if you are the cause of it, how can you cause something to happen that you don't have? You caused it because you had it
mm,
to give, right?
yes.
When you do a loving act, which is what I'm going to offer people, if you want to tap into your divine feminine, which is, I always picture, okay, here's another one, is do a visualization. When I picture myself in my
Yes.
divine feminine, I picture this beautiful woman who's just so at peace, who's effortlessly beautiful and calm and just giving and receiving, like a tree almost, right? Trees
Yes.
give oxygen, they receive CO2, they know that there's a balance, right? And they're just
Mm,
there and they're just accepting and receiving. Feminine reception is very feminine. So you receive, but then
yes.
you give, and you're able to give because you've received. So picture yourself as that woman. And, when we are at peace with ourselves, we want to allow others to be at peace. So a practice you
Mm,
can do is do a loving gesture. Go to somebody and out of nowhere, maybe somebody would talk to and say, how have you been? What's been going on for you?
mm,
Or maybe someone's going through a hard time and you can say, tell me what's going on? Like, share with me how you've been. And you can start to feel that love that you're giving, because they'll probably be surprised and say, wow, thank you for asking. Like, that's really wonderful. That makes me feel good that you did that. And then
yeah.
we feel good that we've given it, right? So be the cause
Yes.
for someone else to experience what you want to know of yourself, right? And
Mm,
again, being the divine feminine is knowing that you are love. You're a source of love. You don't have
yes.
to prove it. You don't have to get someone's approval or make a certain amount of money to be able to give love. That's the other thing is that's beautiful about love is that you don't need anything. You can be naked alone on a street and you still have love to give. And, you know, I actually had a really powerful moment with that in my 20s when I was, struggling with this. I was taking a yoga class and I remember I was obsessively looking in the mirror because that's what I did. Does my body look okay? Does my face look okay? Do I look okay? Are people noticing me? This is how my brain works. It's mad making in there. And I remember just stopping and I had this sort of almost like a download, they call it. And I could feel my heart and it said, you don't need anything to use this. You don't need anything. Don't look around you. Just know that you are a source of love. And that really hit me where I was like, I can give love and I don't need any money or fame or accolades or beauty to do that. And that's the most important thing in this world is love. So what I'm saying is that recognize the infinite power you have. That is love, and start to use it and start to give it away because then you'll really feel it. Sometimes we don't feel it until we give it away. And, the same is said about money that, a powerful act is to give money to someone else because then even if you're like, well, it was just $5, who cares? But subconsciously you're like, well, if I have money, that means, I don't need it. I already have it. And you start to get this idea that, okay, I have it, right? If I can give it away, I have it to give. And you start feeling abundant also because you're like, well, I might not have much, but I have more than this person. And not like a comparison thing, but just like, wow, I do have abundance in my own way. So it's just a powerful act to, again, be the cause for someone else to experience what you are wanting to have, because then you'll realize if you can be the cause, you have to have it too.
Yes. So I love this because, one of the year when I became debt free in 2014, I think I'd already paid up, so I was $60,000 in debt, and I'd been working towards becoming debt free for about 2.5 years at that point. And in January of 2014, my sister gives me this book. And in the book, this woman is talking about doing a gifting challenge. And she did 29 days of giving. And I started with 29 days of just giving, So I would give money, I would give anything, just gifts. So I just did, and then out of the blue, I just felt like, just keep going, You don't skip a day. Every day I gave something for 200 days. That year, I paid off about the remaining $30,000 in debt. I had this goal that I was going to do this in 5 years. And that year, so many miracles happened in my life. I just gave. And I still, once in a while, I run a giving challenge. So guys, if I ever do the gifting challenge again, I'll get you guys on board.
I'd love to be a part of it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I came up with 29 things that you can give every day, and I did this challenge. But what really shocked me is, okay, so for the first 3 to 4 months, nothing major was happening, but I just don't know, my spirit was enjoying it, going to flower shops. So I was very intentional. I would do this thing where I'd go to flea markets on Sundays, and I would just buy random things and gifts. So it wasn't for me. I think, ooh, I see that. Who would like that? Who could I give that to? Ooh, I see this. And then I'd have weeks where I would just drive around and I'd cook, or I'd have money in my car and I'd drive around looking for homeless people just to give things to. It was kind of crazy, but I had to give something every day. And after 4 months, everything exploded in my business. And when I say that year was insane for me, it was also the year I got property. I ended up with $50,000 in savings in my bank account. I became debt free. So much happened after that 4 months. It was ridiculous. Obviously I was also doing work on receiving and all that, but in essence, what you're saying, I get it because I've experienced it. When people say give the thing that you most want, I have seen it energetically. I've experienced it. It has blown my mind. it was one of the most beautiful things. So thank you
That's
for that.
incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And it's just the way the universe works, right? That it's
Yeah.
what you give, you get back. That's why we have the, in every
Mm,
single religion, they have some version of the golden rule, which is treat others how you want to be treated. Give what you're looking to receive. It's everything is
mm,
reciprocal. Everything comes back to you. Everything. But also,
yeah.
when you're driving around and being the source of others to gain, some money
Yes.
or something, some food, then you feel like you're driving around like the source, right? You're the source of these things. You're the source of
Yeah.
abundance. And also it's just infectious because people are grateful and they're happy, and people are happy when they're giving. And it's just, that's why we love Christmas a lot. It's great to receive, but it's also fun to
Yeah.
give things and, to celebrate that of offerings to others. But the biggest thing is that you're literally saying to the universe, I am a source of abundance. And I am is
Mm.
the most powerful phrase we can ever say about ourselves. They say it's the key to the ignition of creation in the universe. I am
Wow.
abundant. I am
Wow.
successful. And so when we do those things for others, we are literally saying to the universe, look at me, here I am, being
Mhm.
abundant, being successful. And so it's like, yeah, you are.
Mm.
And then things come your way, and
Mm.
what you've acknowledged energetically takes place in physicality, and your business is booming and you're doing well and you're paying off your debt. That's how things
That's
work.
incredible. I didn't think of it that way, you know? And as you're talking, I'm remembering that there were days when I'd be like, gosh, where are all the people? Like, I feel like I'd have like certain over weeks, the first few weeks, it's like, okay, I have a strategy. There's certain people that I'm going to give to. I know that if I don't know who I'm going to give to today, I'll give to this person. This homeless person is always on this street. And can I tell you, the days when I wanted to give to those people were sometimes the days when they weren't there. And then it just became awkward. Like there were times when it was like, I'd have to stop random strangers to gift to them. And it's just like, how? And I realized that it's so awkward, this humaning experience, because this should be the most natural thing to give,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
yet there were days when I'd be like, I can't stop a random person and I'll just give them food or money or something, because sometimes my spirit would tell me to do that, but it just felt awkward.
Yes.
But
It is
it
the
also
strangest
took me
things.
out of my out of my shell.
That's good. And I wish more of us would, we do, our social norms are very strange. Because again, it goes the same thing as we're more comfortable with like a kind of aggressive confrontation rather than randomly going up to someone and saying, you know what? I just want to tell you, I love you and I wish you the best. And
Yes.
I hope that you have happiness. People would probably find that really freaking weird, which is strange that we can't just do that. I had someone on my podcast recently where we're talking about why don't we tell more people that we love them? And I get that it's a
Yes.
sacred sentiment and we've attached it to intimacy, yet really it's just an acknowledgement, kind of like the phrase namaste. It's the light in me honors the light in you. From one
Yes.
creation of God to another, I offer you an acknowledgement that we're both love. So I love you. But we're
Yes.
working our way. We haven't learned how to be comfortable with ourselves. We haven't learned that we're the source,
Mm.
right? How could we not feel awkward
Yes.
saying I love you when we don't believe that we are love,
Mm.
when maybe we don't even love ourselves? The more that we start to
Yes.
embrace that and realize that I am statement, I am love, more we'll be doing more
Mm.
of that. And can you imagine how fast the world will change where we start just acknowledging love for one another, start doing
Yeah.
random acts of kindness more often, being comfortable with
Yeah.
stopping someone in the street and saying, I just wanted to tell you that I think that you are amazing and your energy is
Yeah.
beautiful and you're great. Or I just wanted to give you this batch of cookies I made because I'd like you to have them. Have a great day.
Right?
Yeah.
That was so awkward. And I had to do that for 200 days, guys.
You're awesome. That's so
Like,
great. What a great challenge.
it
Those
was
things
one
really
of the
push you. That's
most
a great way to get
challenging
out of your
things.
comfort zone and to test the rules of the universe.
Yeah.
If you don't believe it, then
Um,
try it. Take the challenge and just see what happens.
honestly, can I just tell you also the wildest thing happened?
Yes.
Because for a whole year after that, like in 2015, I felt like I was on this insane roller coaster. I was just like, it was almost like what I would think and desire would just come to me, to the point that by the end of 2015, so this is a year after the gifting challenge, I sat down and cried and was like to the universe, it's enough now. I am not able to receive anymore. I've 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 reached my limit, you know. It's so crazy. And then
Whoa.
I was still traveling, and that year I was traveling like crazy. I have years where I just go and it seems crazy. Like it defies logic how I'm able to afford my travels and the things that happen and how fast it was. There was a time when I was even being asked to do work in Miami, like do runway modeling there. I was like, what is happening? Something is just going berserk in the universe. So by the end of 2015, because I couldn't hold it, I had to ask for it to stop. I literally knelt down several times to talk to my ancestors and the universe. And then I was like, I'm going to move to a tiny little town somewhere. And I was in Goa at the time in India. And I was like, I'm going to move to a different country where nobody speaks English. And I am just going to live a silent life for a while so this can stop. And I needed time. So I learned, I think this was also one of the most powerful lessons for me in receiving and learning about the nervous system and what I could hold. So
Yes.
yes, I highly recommend all that you've said. And nobody had taught me about the divine feminine. I hadn't learned a lot of stuff at that point. I was doing a lot of womb work. Nobody had taught me. I was just doing womb work on top of all this gifting and everything and tantra stuff. And for me, I was like, oh, this is just so that I can like get a boyfriend or whatever. And I was doing like a lot of this deep tantric work, not understanding what the heck I was opening up.
Yes. You open the floodgates. You open the floodgates to receive, but you aren't, but then you're sort of learning alchemy, right? Like once you open the floodgates to the universe, then you recognize how to be sort of the magician, if you will, of, because you can't, as you found, you can't just always receive. It becomes overwhelming. You wouldn't think so, but too many opportunities and too many avenues and different things are just, even if they're great and, you know, encouraging and inspiring, you can only take so much. And then you have to learn how to work with the magic, right? Because what you've gotten into, because we're all magicians, we're all creators. We have way more power than we know.
Yes.
We have way more ability, as you tapped into. Like it's no joke. Like it's a real
joke.
Yeah. But most of us are our own limits. Like I'm still in the sort of mentality of a block to that. I've experienced little like bursts, right? Bursts of like, whoa, everything just came into place. But I've never like felt that, but it's coming. I know it is. And I'll have to work with it as well when it comes. But thank you for reminding me that we do need to get into that, realizing that we can be giving and giving and giving to others so that, you know, if we want to receive in that way, really want to open the floodgates.
Yeah, I think I also needed to have this conversation. So thank you, Whitney, for that.
What's it bringing up for you? What are you realizing now? Where are you at now with it?
Actually, very interesting, because since that moment, I've had my relationship with receiving has changed drastically. Because, like I said, like it can be overwhelming. There's a lot going on, and I think over the years, one of the things that I've seen is that I quickly want to shut it down, because I had like this year and a half where it was just coming and coming and coming. And of course, I had no clue. I was doing gifting challenge, I was doing tantric work, because when I do work that feels really good on a spiritual level, I'm not thinking of, oh, what am I going to benefit from this? You know, I'm thinking this is what my spirit wants and what my soul wants. And then the universe is like, this is lovely. She's doing it, or whatever is happening. So over the years, I've had to slowly open up to receiving again, because remember, I asked for that shutdown. So I'm still like in the opening up. You would think that like I would be back to just like Because I mean, and I'm receiving a lot. Like this year, I've shared, my mother gifted me land, I've bought land, my sister gifted me a Birkin bag. There's just so many things that have happened. You know, I've got a publishing deal with Penn Macmillan. My book is getting published in October. There's things
Oh
that
my
are happening,
gosh.
and just like holding it and just
Mhm.
not freaking out is one of the beautiful things for me. But I'm also, the beauty of this is that I'm actually not freaking out. I'm fine with it. And part of me has been saying, I would love to get back to that flow of receiving. And I'd forgotten what I did to get back to that flooding. Because, like you, now I desire that, you know, that like, whoo. And now I'm like, oh, those are the things that I did. But I also don't want to do things because I feel like it will get me that result. I only want
Yeah.
to do things if my spirit is in alignment with it, because I feel
Yes.
like I always talk about doing this tit for tat with the universe, right?
Mhm.
And that we should be careful of thinking that, like, if I do this, then I will get this, because then we're still not operating from a space of authenticity and alignment. I don't know if that makes sense, but like ultimately truth is doing a thing because it feels right. It is what your soul desires. And that's when the true magic happens.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Definitely. But, and it takes time to get there, right? Like your journey of just
Mm.
trying the experiment, like just give, whether you feel like it or not in a certain day. And then you realize like, wow, it does work, but I'd rather do it because when we do it from our soul, then it will be more in balance, right? We'll be
Mm.
receiving just as much as we need and nothing more, right? Because we're not giving
Yes.
just to give, just because we want a result. We're giving because, oh, I feel called now. Here's an opening. Now I'm done. And oh,
Yes.
I'm receiving now. Beautiful. And now I'm ready to give again. So it becomes this beautiful symbiotic relationship. You know, we can wield things like the magician, like this is, I'd like to
Yes.
create this now. I'd like to give this now. And it becomes this beautiful, we kind of become the conductor of our life, a time for giving, a
Yes.
time for receiving, you know, a time for stillness, time for quiet, all those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. So, Whitney, you do such incredible work. Please, can you tell us about your podcast? How do people get hold of you? Where do people get to listen to your podcast? How do they follow you? And is there any freebie that you're giving to people that they can download? I'll have all the
Yes.
links in the bio, in the description, you guys. So
Yeah.
check out the description.
So the quickest way to find me, and a lot of links for my podcast, is on Instagram at Women Waken. If you follow me, and then if you DM me to any of the listeners, I will offer a free tarot card pull for you. I'll do one personally for you.
Wow.
If you add me on Instagram and message me. And then you can find my podcast, which is Women Waken Podcast, on Apple, Spotify, anywhere where podcasts exist. And yeah, I'd love to connect with any and all of you.
Okay, before I let you go, I have just one last question that
Yes.
I meant to ask and then I forgot. How you talk about pulling tarot and doing like the esoteric work.
Mhm.
And I know that for the longest while, most people don't know that like Carl Jung was one of the people that believed in therapy being very esoteric. But over time, I found that therapy in the West moved away from that and became very masculine. How do
Mhm.
you find that your services are received when you do work as a therapist? You pull tarot, you talk about the divine feminine, and you're
Mhm.
pulling in a spirituality. Just really
Yeah.
fascinated.
Yeah. Well, you know, I find that the people who are aligned with it will find me, right? Where
Mm,
there's synchronicity in this universe, and everyone who's what you seek is seeking you. That's a quote that I love.
mm,
Whatever you're looking for is looking for you as well, and you'll find each other, right? So I find that
mm,
people who find me to work with me as a therapist are usually pretty attuned to wanting to tap into
mm,
their intuition, their self-love, their self-acceptance, their gifts, their knowing of themselves as a divine, beautiful being. And they might not know those words yet, but they know the essence of these ideas. Talk is cheap, right? Words are nothing. They're just ways to label things. They feel it. They feel the sense of, I have a lot of this energy, but not a lot of that. I have a lot of lack and need, but not a lot of that love and peace. So they want more of it. And then they usually find me. And then I'm able to work with them in sort of, the more energetic fields, the more esoteric world, where we realize that there's so much more than meets the eye, that we're so much bigger than our bank account or our weight or our looks, whatever it is. And that we have that abundance and that infinite love right within us, that we are source.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love that. And I think that is a good place to start. Whitney, you have been amazing. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I deeply appreciate it. And Money Magicians, please check out Whitney. She is incredible. Check out her podcast. Follow her on Instagram. She shares such incredible wisdom. And as usual, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to learn how to connect with, tap into your ancestral money wisdom, I have a free 7-day training. You can check it out at wealthy-money.com/training. Again, wealthy-money.com/training. And you can just check out the description to find that link. I'll see you guys in the next podcast interview. Thank you so much, Whitney.
Thank you so much, Vangile. This was lovely.